Hey, it's the Latino Newsletter podcast, a show about us all the time. I'm your host, Julio Ricardo Varela, and a special thanks to the generous support from the Latino Community Foundation for season 1 of this podcast. Learn more about the Latino Community Foundation at latinocf.org. latinocf.org. All right, y'all. This is episode 20. 20 episodes for the Latino Newsletter, season 1 of the Latino Newsletter. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we're doing this show. I won't reveal too much before I read the bio of our guest who's based in Philadelphia. But it was a pitch that I got during the height of the election cycle, and I was getting tired about talking about Latino votes and who's going to win. And I got this tweet sent to the Latino Newsletter, and it was from this guest, Alisha Miranda, who is doing a lot of fabulous things in Philadelphia. And I was intrigued because I think having a guest like Alisha on helps me think about where does journalism go next for Latino communities and Latino and Latina journalists. So Alisha Miranda is a former project manager. I'm reading from her website. She's now a food and travel journalist and the cultural producer of Latinx Industry Night. And according to her bio, she recently quit a decade-long career in creative agencies to return to her journalism and event production roots. Now, Alisha's interested in working with food and beverage brands, indie media companies, publications, destination marketing organizations on large-scale editorial and multimedia projects. She has Latinx Industry Night. She's written for Edible Philly, The Strategist, Time Out, Star Chefs, Philadelphia Magazine, The Philadelphia Inquirer, Billy Penn, Eater, AARP, Resi. I mean, we're talking to, Alisha Miranda, a journalist that's producing and diversifying her strategy. So, Alisha Miranda, welcome to the Latino Newsletter podcast.
I'm so excited. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So I'm honored.
The reason why I wanted to have you on was because was it a tweet? Where did you pitch me on social media?
Yeah, it was definitely, I was just going to say, I've been a day oneer. So when I've been following you as a journalist for a while, and then when you announced this project, I was like, this is intriguing. This is something that, is an example of carving out your own career path, which very much speaks to me. And so I had tweeted, because I know that you'd cover news most of the time. I was like, I'm not a news journalist, but I think that there's something that we could talk about.
Yeah.
So, I had responded to you guys on Twitter first, being like, do y'all want to talk to non-news journalists? And then I emailed you to get, because I am a journalist myself and wanted to see, maybe there's some overlap here that we can have some interesting conversation.
And you did this probably a couple of weeks before the election.
Yes.
And I was just exhausted.
Right.
And it was like, Alisha, I'm really intrigued. Let's try to do something by the end of the year. And so here we are doing it. And like I told Joaquin, I'm like, I want a palate cleanser. So we're cleansing the palate.
Cleansing the timeline.
Cleansing the timeline. We'll go back to political talk and Latinidad and where we're at and all that next week. But I specifically wanted to talk to you about the creator economy and being Latino, Latina, Latinx, and just kind of get a feel of how it's going in a place like Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I came into with this conversation. So how's the creator economy going for you in Philadelphia?
This year has been pretty monumental for not only myself, but a lot of people that I know who, are not corporate 9-to-5ers, who are bartenders, who are freelancers, who are, just small business owners and emerging brands. I think 2024 really helped a lot of us understand with clarity what our values are, what is it that we want to do with the rest of our lives, quite honestly, and how we want to move through the world. So Philly, I think, has always been really wonderful and supportive and such a transformational city for me for the past almost 10 years. But I think this year proved like,
Yeah.
okay, I can do some stuff here, you know?
You're making me hopeful because
That's all we have.
that's all we have, right? So this is where I'm like the Star Wars in me. I'm like,
Yeah.
Alisha Miranda, you're my only hope. Obviously, there's so many of us that are out there, and I'm
Mhm.
particularly focusing on our community. There's a lot of people that are creating on their own, and sometimes we don't take the moment to check in with each other just to compare notes.
Mhm.
So the fact that you're optimistic after 2024, tell me why you feel optimistic and say more about yourself and what you're actually doing specifically,
Sure.
because I think it's interesting because that's what got me intrigued about your pitch.
Cool. So I'm a food and travel journalist. I'm based here in Philadelphia. I have been for the past, like I said, almost 10 years. Next year will be 10 years here in Philly. And then 3 years ago, 2022, fall of 2022, I started an event series called Latinx Industry Night. So it's a simple concept. It's guest bartender pop-ups around Philadelphia bars. We create a one night only menu reflecting each bartender's ethnicity and patria. So
Okay.
we have always a different rotating lineup of bartenders.
I'm intrigued by this idea.
So I have hosted 6 events now since 2022. It's primarily here in Philadelphia. We try to change up the bartender lineup with each one, and the menus all change. So, for example, we had an event with guest bartenders from New York City's Bar Belly, which is an award-winning bar, and their lineup was Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, and Mexicans. They each basically created a drink reflective of those places. And it was a 6 cocktail menu. And so Randstad Room, the bar that was hosting this event here in Philadelphia, is known for their daiquiris. Like I will say on the record, and I have said it before, the best daiquiris in the entire nation. I'm so sorry, Miami. Um,
Wow. Okay.
so they kind of came back and did a throwback to their daiquiri number one to do that as a special. And then Bar Belly created their own drinks as well for the event. So that's usually how it goes. We have
Yeah.
had our events at a place called Bolo, which is Chef Yu Fuentes, who was nominated as a semifinalist for James Beard Award earlier this year. And the head bartender there was one of my first bartenders in the first event, and he has gone on to win Punch Drink's Best Bartender of 2024.
Damn.
So he's in that lineup. We have done also one in DC at a place called Grand Cata, which is an all Latin American wine shop. So for that event, we did all Latin American wine tastings. And we had a restaurant called Quiqui, which is Puerto Rican across the street. They did all the
Ah.
cuchi fritos.
Okay. And then you're actually generating revenue with us as a creator, right? Or am I
So
missing that?
for the first 2 years, I did not cut myself a check. So I did it basically to give. Yeah.
Spoken like a true founder owner.
Yeah. So
Continue.
I
Yeah.
because and the reason why, so this event, I didn't think that it was going to grow to this scale. You know, we threw a party 2 years ago celebrating a story I had done about these 6 bartenders in Philadelphia. We thought it'd be fun to do a party around it. It went a little too well, as in that it sold out.
Why? Why? Oh, so it's sold out.
Sold out.
People.
We had to turn people at the door.
Were
Were
people pissed?
Yeah,
Were people
they
pissed?
were.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
But
That's a good problem. Okay.
a very
go.
good problem to have. And then before the
Yeah.
end of the night, people were like, "Okay, cool. Like, when's the next one? Like, where are we pulling up to next?" And I was like, "Oh, okay."
All of a sudden, you became like Julie McCoy of the Love Boat. You became the
So,
cruise planner. There
yeah.
you go. Okay.
So
All right. Keep going.
I was like, this could be something here, because what the feedback I was getting was first of all, there is no other industry night event that is as curated, um, and with an eye for intentionality and community as the one that I've been hosting. People
Good.
are not seeing a space for them, especially front of house. You know, we We always equate Latinos with back of house, they're invisible labor. But what happens when you have amazing cocktail bartenders making the best drinks in town? Now you're putting a name to the face.
Right.
So I was like, this will not be a side hustle to me. If I'm going to pursue this, I'm going to build out the operations of this, what the business model looks like, all that stuff. And I
Right.
said to myself, I will not start to cut myself a check until we meet a revenue goal, like an average revenue goal for each event.
Okay.
Um, so so all the revenue that is made goes right back to that bar or restaurant that's hosting the event. So this year was the first year that we finally crossed my revenue goal, that I could start putting together packages for higher level financial sponsorship, investments, product and trade offers to basically offset the costs, right? So another thing that people might not know about me is before I was a journalist, or I guess simultaneously, I should say, I've always had 3 jobs.
Let's establish the fact that you've worn many hats, and
Yeah.
this is part of the characteristic of
This is
who
like
we are.
job 1C.
Exactly. Continue.
But so I spent probably 10 years now working in creative services as a project manager and marketing manager. So doing event is kind of my thing. And I knew exactly what the playbook would be. So I know each line item of how much things cost, from paying the photographer to the print materials to
Oh, okay.
how much the
All right.
bartender should be paid. So I basically I lined everything up to know how much it would cost and then how much I could charge. So yeah, so
Yeah.
this year has been very much like, for this event series to continue, this is the amount of funding that needs to happen. This is the marketing support. This is the revenue that needs to be made for myself speaking and also for the bars. So yeah, so there's a lot of intentionality with it. It's grown, every event gets about 150 people out, which is amazing. And I want to see it grow. I think that it's a concept that could travel. There's no reason why I can't bring it to other places.
No, absolutely. I think there's so many things you bring up, what you just said about industry nights and how, if you look at the industry and how so many of our share, so many of our community is in the back of the room or never gets noticed. And you're trying to shine a light on that.
Mhm.
So how's the response? Why do you think it hit so well in Philly? Like in that sense?
Well, I think that it hit very well because no one has profiled Hispanic and Latino hospitality stars, what I like to call rising stars. They're definitely known within the community. Like, every bartender knows every bartender here. But as far as getting press coverage and feature profiles, no one was doing that until I came along, which I think is good and
Is that
bad.
sad?
Like,
That's what I'm saying. Are you like excited? It's almost like it was good that you filled the void,
right.
but the
So
void was there, and why was there a void? You know what
yeah,
I'm
so
saying?
I've unfortunately become the default Latina reporter in town on food and bev, which is very challenging because I feel so much pressure to have to represent.
Yeah.
But I will say it has gotten better, and I think that people are realizing, like, you don't have to be Hispanic to report on the Hispanic community. And I have been very lucky that the editors that I've worked with, they let me write bilingual. They let me write in like Spanish slang. They let me bring my whole self to these stories and to share the people who I'm writing about. So I think that has resonated a lot. Is like, these bartenders, you don't think of themselves as anything but a bartender, are getting featured in a way that they've never been before. And so that's very exciting for the community to go to bat and be like, that's my bartender from, Sodinez. I love that guy. I love that he's getting, his flowers.
Yeah. So, okay, this has been really good because I think the reason why, again, people are going like, Julio, why are we featuring this story? It's like, I'm actually trying to look at the bigger picture here, in the sense that your story, your example, is one of a journalist who's like, hey, I see an opportunity, and so I'm going to do these industry nights. Did you ever, this is the question I have, because I'm in the middle of a startup nonprofit, and I'm looking, everyone's like talking about revenue and different streams of revenue, right? That's sort of the talk. Do you ever, as a journalist, like grapple with covering food and then like promoting events? Is that even an issue that runs through your head, or like ethically or anything? I hate to bring up the word ethics, but
What do you mean? Say more.
Journalists as marketers.
Oh, no, no.
Doesn't hit you at all. Like, I feel like we're past that. Or am I
Yeah,
too old
because
school? Yeah,
no,
want
I'm
to give
very
me.
old school. I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but I have very hard boundaries about, like, for example, the events that I go to, restaurant openings, I really don't do. I don't really go to previews. I very much do not go to events where there's influencers. Like, I find myself unfortunately having to repeat, like, I am not a content creator. I am a reporter. I interview, I
This is
research,
why I'm
I
asking you.
fact check.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I have to remind people sometimes, like, yeah, this is not my, lane. This is something else and I don't cover this because of that. I'm finding that the journalism field is getting so watered down that I just constantly have to remind people. It's funny and sad that when I explain to people my process for fact checking, people are like, "You fact check for a restaurant?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's some basic fact checking that needs to be done. Just because you say this dish is made this way doesn't mean it's true.
I
Like,
love
there's
it.
historical context and cultural context, and
Yeah.
I need to eat the food to see if the chef, the way he's describing it or presenting it, matches up to the experience." So there's ways that, there are definitely ethics that I'm very strong-willed about to remind people. And so yeah, for the most part, people really get it and respect it. But yeah, it's still something that I have to, like, remind people about for
But
sure.
I think it's just like, even when you're doing this, as long I come from the schools, like, as long as you reveal everything and you're upfront and transparent,
Yeah.
then it's not an issue. I don't think
Yes.
consumers, I don't think people that read you or engage with you at these events go like, "What's in it for Alisha?" It's like, no, I think you're putting the community first. I mean, is that the right assessment?
Yeah, and a lot of the venues that we've had, either I've already established relationships with either the bartenders or the bar or restaurant. And so for me, it's about, like, this event to me is another storytelling platform.
Mm. Yeah.
Like, really, full stop. For me, it's like, okay, I wanted to pitch a story about XYZ. I can't do that because for whatever reason the pitch wasn't accepted. This is a way to show that not all stories have to live in text only. Some stories should be experiential. Some stories should be a podcast. Some stories should be a video. So for me, it's really about bringing my journalism work to life. These are all the people that I love, that I report on, that I support, that I want to lift up. Here, come meet them face to face. Let them make you a drink. Sample their menu.
I freaking love this. I'm not gonna. I'm like, I get all giddy. I'm like texting my producer Joaquin. I'm like, oh my god, this is exactly the type of show I wanted.
And, like, it's a lot of work. So for me,
Oh yeah, I know it
what's
is.
in it for me? It's like, I don't make too much money off this. Like I said, I just started putting together what it would cost for me for my check at the end of the night.
Can I give you a word of advice
Yeah,
from like a grizzled person that's done this for 20 years? Ready for this?
I'm ready.
Always pay yourself first.
This is interesting because I was just reading an article, well, an interview with another creative from a newsletter I really love called Creativity in the Time of Capitalism.
Yeah.
And the person who the interview was, who was with the person asking the same question, like, why aren't you paying yourself first? And I agree with the woman. She was like, I will in due time, but I just want to make sure the people that I'm, that are relying on me for this get what they need from it. Like the bars and the restaurants, they deserve the revenue. I don't want to see these places close. Restaurant closures happen way too often.
No, I hear what you're saying.
And
I hear what
so
you're saying.
I'm very privileged that I have a wonderful husband who can support, our shared living costs and can support me. And he was also my photographer, by the way. Shout out to Philippe.
Okay. Okay. So it's a family business. You're telling me.
So,
But you're loving. Like, I mean, not because this has been wonderful, but you seem to enjoy it. And
yeah,
I
it's a
think
personal
I think-
fulfillment. It's part of my career goal to do something more with what platform I have. And it's all about creating opportunities that I don't see coming to me. So if they're not going to come to me, then I'm going to make them happen.
So this is how I want to wrap this up, because this is exactly why I was so intrigued by you reaching out. And I'm proving, and also anyone who's listening, like, this is one of the things I'm really proud of. And when people say, oh, Latino Rebels and Latino Newsletter and email Julio, your testament that I actually answered you and said, like, come on my show.
Yes, you did.
I think your story, the reason why I want to bring you on and sort of to kind of conclude this conversation, what you've done is you've created your own lane, your specific lane within your specific part of the world in your specific skill area or beat, right? And you've been able to enhance it. I love what you said about sometimes the story is not a print piece or a podcast. It's like you have to experience it.
Yeah.
For people that are listening too, because I do have a lot of journalist friends who are kind of trying to figure it out right now, because obviously the industry is in such a flux. And I actually think there's a lot of opportunity. I'm not someone who's like looking at journalism and saying this is going to be gone in 10 years.
I'm with you. I don't think so either.
I disagree 100%. I actually think it's more of what you're doing.
And I would say my rebuttal to people who say, journalism is dead. I'm like, girl, I graduated in 2008. If it was dead, I wouldn't be here. Like, I graduated with a full-on journalism major in 2008, if anyone remembers that lovely year. But I'm still here.
What have you learned about creating new lanes that you want to tell people, and what are the pitfalls, and what are the things you want people, if you could tell people, like, avoid this, besides not paying yourself?
Definitely pay yourself when you feel the time is right. What I've learned is that it's all about you betting on yourself. You have to bet on yourself because no one else will. And that could very much be eldest daughter syndrome on my behalf, if I'm being a Latina, but you have to do it for yourself. And I've always been that person that's had a couple of jobs because I'm trying to find that puzzle piece, that perfect puzzle match where I can do all the things that I love. And if it doesn't pay me the big money, so be it. But, for me, if I die tomorrow, I don't want my headstone to say, oh, she was a great project manager. I want to have my tombstone and my obituary say, she was a pillar of the community. She gave people a voice, her work mattered. And so to me, that is what I'm laser focused on is, and I think you're absolutely correct in engaging my approach. It's being hyper specific, hyper focused. Yeah. What can you do really, really well? And how can you create opportunity around that? And what I've also learned is, like, just take it slow. I'm very impatient and
Amen.
I want something to happen tomorrow, but that's just not how it goes. And so this event series is very much it's a long tail lead time. I'm learning to work with brands. I'm learning to work with liquor brands, with distributors and importers. I went to Bar Convent and Tales of the Cocktail just to figure out the beverage scene. Because I was like, I kind of now knee deep in this, like.
You're fact checking liquor. I love it.
Basically. So, yeah.
Hey, there could be a lot worse things to do in life. Listen, Alisha Miranda, I can continue to talk to you. First of all, you're doing exactly what journalists should be doing. Just challenge yourself, like, get yourself out of your comfort zone. And just like you said, it's like the technology's out there, the ability to do things are out there, and you have to have these multiple income streams. There's no other way to put it. So for that, like, where can people who are now have listened to the show and said, wow, what a great idea, or I'm in Philadelphia, how do they find out more about you?
Sure. So my website is Alisha, ALISHA, in the .biz. So Alisha in the biz. And then my handles on social everywhere are Alisha in the biz. And the website has everything. It has all the work I've done. It has Industry Night recaps. We just released a really fun video from the last one. So you'll get a sense of what they're like if you haven't participated. And if you're in Philly, pull up, come through, email me.
Oh, all right. Alisha Miranda, thank you so much for being on the Latino Newsletter podcast with me.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Okay, how about that curveball? You see? Latino Newsletter doesn't always talk about politics and elections. We're moving into a phase that is trying to expand the conversation, trying to explore the challenges and opportunities that are out there for independent voices. And I really loved what Alisha had to say about storytelling and journalism. So this little case study, this little story out of Philadelphia appeals on so many levels in our community. So I hope some of what you heard you can take to heart and you keep at it, because that's what we're doing. We're going to keep at it as we go into 2025 here at the Latino Newsletter, which, as you all know, is produced and edited by me, Julio Ricardo Varela, and fellow Boricua New York Knicks fan, Joaquin Cotler. I think we need to do a Knicks show eventually for the Latino Newsletter. I know Joaquin be up for it. And the mixing and sound design is also by Joaquin Cotler. The music you hear is by Cast of Characters via Soundstripe. You can now donate to us at thelatinonewsletter.org and click on the Donate tab, or here on Spotify. We're close to 50% of target for our year-end goal. Special thanks to two amazing donors, Chuck Rocha and Ed O'Keefe, two fabulous friends of mine who gave in the last week. Really appreciate it. If you like what you heard, share this podcast, rate and review us, talk about us. You know, you can subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeartRadio. We're on YouTube. We're uploading the audio on Twitter, and our Twitter handle is @LatNewsletter. We're getting a lot of love on Blue Sky, also @LatNewsletter, Blue Sky, blah, blah, blah. And you can also follow us on all the other social platforms at the Latino Newsletter, and send me an email at julio@thelatinonewsletter.org. I answer them, like Alisha's email, which turned into episode 20. All right, we'll be back next week. Yep, we're going to be back next week with another show. Peace out, y'all.